Okay, be just a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Stuart's here. All right, here we go. Hey, Stuart. Okay. Hey, Stuart, how are you doing? Oh, Tim's here too. Wait. Here we go. And Miles is here. Okay. Here we go. Okay. All right. Well, I'll keep an eye on people who are coming in. But anyway, we're going to start. I want to maybe start with Stuart kind of going, telling us what he can help inform us, you know, as far as active imagination, shut your eyes and see, James Joyce says, and Stuart has a lot of experience in this. As far as we're going through the book with Jeffrey Raff, which is called The Ally, will somewhat follow Jung's path of doing active imagination. And basically, it's alchemy creating this third center of awareness within ourselves. The one thing I would say about Jeffrey Raff, and maybe Stuart can speak to this, is that he is incredibly advanced, and I think so is Stuart. But let me just get this. Okay, I got one other person here trying to get in. There we go. Okay, Crystal, how you doing? Hi, Crystal. We're just getting started here. Hi.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. Well, anyway, the one thing I would say about Jeffrey Raff, and I talked about this last night, is there's a in the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz, there is an image of three types of adepts. One are the ones with wings that can just fly up to the opening, into the imaginal world. Okay, Steve is here. Okay. All right. I think Steve is here. Yeah, there he is. Okay, great, Steve. Hi. I was just going to mention, Steve, that you would be a natural born therapist because your questions, I was in a meeting with him yesterday, are so they draw out, that's edusera, they draw out. But anyway, we're just starting. Oh, David O'Donoghue's here. Okay. Yeah, we'll do a little introduction here. Hey, Dave. Now, David O'Donoghue runs a center here called Terra Muse, which is probably not operating right now. Yes. Times are hard for dreamers right now. Everybody's got to do it on Zoom, Well, anyway, we're just getting started, and I was going to turn it over to Stuart in just a second, but I just wanted to mention about the word ally work is there, in the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz, there's three types of adepts, and one is the ones with wings that can just fly up to this opening that was on the upper ceiling to get to the next level. And Christian was the second type. He had a ladder, but he had to carry it around with him wherever he goes, and did not make him very happy. But anyway, he could crawl up the ladder, And the third type were the ones with ropes. Now, the ones with ropes are probably most of us, other than possibly Stuart, who is very advanced in this, and he's gonna talk about it in a second, is hand over hand. Now, when Jeffrey Raff speaks of the ally, which is a word that he got from shamanism and also from Carlos Castaneda and the work of Don Juan. Okay, Sandy is here. Hi, Sandy. She's our expert dream interpreter. She helped us out last night very much. Helped me out anyway. But anyway, so the word ally, which comes from shamanism, refers to this being which connects, is a composition of psyche and matter, and can appear as an angel in the real world, and this is the being that Jeffrey Raff was speaking with. And I don't really think, especially at the beginning, when we're doing this work with the ones with ropes who have to do everything hand over hand, it is helpful to go into active imagination, actively seeking the ally. I think what you really want to do is find a being there whom you feel love from, who you feel a great sense of love from, and then deal with them. And the whole idea is to create the imaginal powers in your own awareness and give strength and let grow the imaginal beings that you meet in imaginal world. But anyway, Stuart, why don't you, how has your work, do you, as we go along, it's going to inform us about active imagination for us newbies. Go ahead.
Well, what happened for me was during the week was obviously I got the email that Craig sent out on the PDF file and downloaded it, had a look, and I said, oh my God, this is what I've been doing for the last 30 years. So I got onto Craig and said, listen, bit of synchronicity here. This is, I just want to sort of let him know that probably I would be jumping in a little bit in this session. So just so you know where I was coming from. So very briefly, where I am coming from is I started off sort of my professional life. I trained as a mechanic and I was doing all of that. And then the world was turned upside down on me. And there was sort of a psychic breakthrough, breakdown, whatever you like. And it was out of the blue. I just started experiencing things. So in order to try sort of hold ground and sort myself out and find out what was going on, I started off then, I was introduced to Jung, the teachings, and it just made absolute sense to me. It was exactly what was going on for me. So that was how I started into Jung and sort of my beginnings, if you like. So it was, early 20s, I suppose. And since then, I made a career of it, trained as a therapist, and so on. Seem to have done that for the last 30 years. But the more sort of psychic end of it, the beginnings of it, that also developed and brought me on a parallel journey of working as a medium for probably 10 or 12 years. And my area, if you like, of expertise in mediumship was trance mediumship. So in the very beginning of this, part of what my experience was that I was pulled into spontaneous trance on several occasions. And these voices began pouring out, which happened once in the middle of a therapy session, I might add, which was flipping terrifying because I started telling the therapist all about her father relationship, which hadn't been so pleasant. And I had absolutely no knowledge of this stuff. So this stuff started pouring out. And it was like, as I now know, these experiences happened to prove, to validate, to make real what was going on, because I was cracking up. It was flipping, pushing me well over the edge. So the two courses, the two roads, if you like, were great to balance and to ground. One grounded the other, and one made sense of the other, while the internal stuff really led the process. So that's just a very brief sort of info into where I'm coming from on this. So over the years, and I'm talking about maybe 30 years, this internal relationship with my spirit guide, with the control, as I would have called it in the beginning, has been, I would say, probably 90% instrumental. It has been by far the most effective part of transforming me and my life, and still does it, and in quite incredible ways. That's a huge conversation. But in the early years, obviously, because it was so big and I was so involved, I was going here, there, and everywhere trying to find out about it. Went all around the world trying to make sense of what was going on, met people, learned from people, dived well into it, and they subsequently ran groups and trained people who had that ability to be trance mediums. It's a form of mediumship. It can be looked at under the label of spiritualism, but spiritualism is a very, very, very narrow view of what it actually is. To use it more in the way that Jung has suggested or introduced through active imagination is also to take one side of it, because that also doesn't really allow people to understand the nature of what it actually is. So this book, Raf's work, when I saw it, I thought, oh my God, this guy is bringing these two worlds together in a wonderful way. And he's also linking in the shamanic world into it, which is also, it's like the third finger on my hand, as it were. So that's where I'm coming from. Now, in relation to the work itself, I'll jump in and out of this, if I can, if I have something to say. But basically, what I would suggest to everybody entering into this area is to see it that there are two aspects to it. There's the practice, which is when you sit down to work with content, and there's the practicing. It's like if you want to go out and cycle in a competition level, you have to go to the gym and work out. You do your practicing so that you can be good at the practice. Now, without the practicing, there's no relatedness being built up. It's like going down to the competition, jumping on your push bike and hope to win it. Forget it. If you don't prepare, you're not going to get the results. So the practicing is to enter into the aliveness of this level of our being and to start building on the relatedness so that we can actually enjoy the relationship. Now, what we're working with here, I'm going to go, Craig, is this okay? I'll just go very quickly through it.
Please. This is, okay. We need an introduction. By the way, what city in Ireland are you from?
Oh, I'm from Dublin, but I'm living down the country, so I'm okay. Sort of in the center of Ireland.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is aliveness. When we look into the unconscious, what we're looking at is unborn aliveness. These are my words, and in order to create the sort of foundation, the familiarity with this area, we have to constellate it. We have to build the bridge. We have to create the means to relate with this unknown, mysterious source of wisdom that's inside of us. So what a lot of people do is they immediately jump to the relationship, and they, close their eyes, go into the active imagination, and they imagine these beings with them, and that's fine. That's one way of doing it, but that's not going to build on that's not building the power. That's not building the strength. If we engage in a simple exercise in order to build the relatedness, that will benefit directly in when we sit down and we imagine, we begin to create from our identity. Okay.
Is that it? Okay, well, you'll jump in and stuff, but one thing,
No, I thought somebody had the hand up, Craig.
Oh,
I thought there was a question.
Oh, okay, yeah, go. Do you have a question, Miles, or? Okay, no, I didn't see, did anybody have a question?
So when we enter into the active imaginal level, what we're seeing is things that we can relate with, images, symbols that are coming from our own mind. And yet what we're relating with in reality is this unknown. So even now, if I said to you all, okay, I want you to close your eyes and just to drop down inside yourselves and find a level inside yourself, inside your body, go into your heart and find a level in your own heart that has aliveness. Feel for the energy. You might feel it lower down, you might feel it higher up. Find a place where you start to become alive and just stay there. Now, if you're doing that for a minute, you get what a minute gives you. If you're sitting and you're going into a deep meditational space, you'll get what that deep meditational space will give you. There'll be less of you present and there'll be more of this aliveness present. Now, some people might feel it as a tingling. Some people might feel it as a flutter. It's whatever the sensation is for you. You're entering into this space inside you where it's just energy. You could do it sitting in the back of a church. You could do it while you're waiting for a bus. You could do it while you're sitting at the table with a cup of tea. Close your eyes and just go into the aliveness. And you can bring an intention with you. You can talk to the aliveness. You can begin to constellate the aliveness. Get to know the aliveness and allow the aliveness to get to know you. And slowly, 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 you start to develop your own way. You start to build within yourself a library of experience where you go the same route into the same place each time. So it's like you're going to the gym and you're doing a workout and you're doing the same reps, you're doing the same exercises. And through this repetition, through this ritual, you're building a way in, you're opening a path to be able to relate with the mysterious part of the constellated imaginal realm, with the unknown part, the unknowable part that's just there to us as aliveness. It hasn't developed, it hasn't been constellated into any form. In other words, you're building a relationship at the back. Now, what actually happens in that space, from a mediumistic point of view, from a trance medium's point of view, when training as a trance medium, a lot of people don't know if they have an ability or if they don't have an ability. So they come anyway. And what I would do is I would get them to sit within the energy of the group and just to go into that aliveness and to be with that aliveness and ask the aliveness to come forward. Just put the request into yourself, be open to it, welcome it. Have this feeling in you of open-heartedness, of welcome, of enthusiasm. And what will happen over time is that aliveness will begin to move into you and you'll become more alive. You might feel yourself starting to be moved, very slight movements of the body. You might feel yourself wanting to start rock or spiral as you enter into this energy. And that might be it. You might feel it at your back, you might feel it at your front. It doesn't matter. And just stay there, stay there, stay there, inviting it, inviting it, inviting it. And remember, this is not the practice, this is the practicing for the practice. So you're building this relationship and you're inviting this presence in. And the movements you begin to feel are your response to the overshadowing that's taking place. You've no idea whether this presence is going to be male, female, young, old, what it is, but you're starting to embody it. See, this getting to know this area of yourself has to be done through direct experience. It's not through conceptual knowing. It's only through direct experience of entering into this relatedness that this sort of presence, this dyad, this friendship is created. If what happens sometimes is that presence comes in too quickly, if there's a sudden, it scares the Jesus out of you. yeah, it's like it'll freak you out because it's such a takeover, it's such an intrusion into your consciousness. And then what happens is your heart will begin to have palpitations. You'll see people's veins starting to pulse, and they're showing all of the affect of fear, because it's like I'm being brought into this altered state of consciousness too quickly. I'm inflating. My energy is expanding outwards because of the presence of this aliveness, and immediately my own consciousness will jump in and block it. Or my own consciousness will jump in and start to build on it. And it'll turn it into fantasy, which is what we don't want. So by getting used to the presence working with you, it's allowing this to be a more stable environment. Your mind is much more stable when it comes to the practice itself. And then you can go in with power, not without the power. You can go into the practice with power, and your mind is not going to be as cognitively involved. There'll be more of a controlled state put on you, which means that when you're in your meditative space, or in this subliminal space, or in the dreamscape, if you like, well, then what happens is when the drop down occurs, when the surprise event occurs, you're imagining yourself walking down the path, and there's a stream and a river and all that sort of stuff. Say you've taken content from a dream and you're working with the dream through active imagination. You've recreated the dream world, if you like. You've all the people from the dream all together in front of you in your imagination, and you're sort of beginning. Then at some point in time in the active imagination, you will lose time, and you'll drop down. You'll be pulled downwards into it, and something will happen. Oh, that person suddenly turned around, and I saw a whole golden light coming out of the back of their head, and suddenly this eagle flew out of the back of their head. Okay, was that me, or was that the unconscious? Okay, well, if you've dropped down, the chances are it was more the unconscious. There's something in it. Now, if your mind is stable, if you're being held within a stable relationship with this power within you, then your mind won't interpret that. And it'll leave it alone long enough for that symbol, that emerging symbol, to create itself, and also to transfer something, to relate its content into you at an unconscious level, before your mind comes back and starts having its own dialogue with it. So the practicing creates this sort of sense of knowing of the environment, and it also builds the relationship so that when you enter into the practice, you can do so from a better place. Then what happens later on, if you like, through the practice, is the overshadowing, if it's meant to be, will develop into more of an embodying of the presence, and you might be inspired to start speaking. And then as soon as you hear the sound of your own voice, you might say to somebody sitting in a circle, okay, make a sound. Just go with it and just make the sound, whatever the sound wants to be, allow the sound out. And the person makes the sound, and instantly it brings their consciousness back. And what you got to say to the person is, and same as with active imagination, is don't worry if it's not right. Don't worry if it's you. Accept it. It has to be. It begins with 99% you, 1% the unconscious. And then it goes to 90% you and 10% the unconscious. Then it'll go to 80% you and 20% the unconscious. So make the sound and allow it to be you, and allow that, give the sound, give the permission of the sound to the energy, so that the next sound you make might be more it and less you. And again, you're building relatedness with the affect, with the felt affect. You're building familiarity with the process of embodying this energy, allowing to come through you, sharing your space with this energy. And then gradually the effect of that becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, so that if it's for trance mediumship, you will then be brought deeper and deeper and deeper into the altered state, to the point where you are gone, where it becomes deep unconscious trance. Now that's what that was my claim to fame, if you like, once upon a time. So the deep unconscious level is where there's sufficient control over the medium, so that the medium is completely out of it. And it's just coming through, and you're still there. You can still hear what's going on, but it's like it's happening in the room next door. And that's from a spiritualist space, that's what they like, that's what they want, and so on. That's what they, that's their gig. Now, from a psychological point of view, what happens then is, instead of relating with your guide, if you have this sort of Jungian knowledge within you and you have this curiosity, what happens then is you begin to ask, as I did, what is this? What's going on here? Who is this guide? Is he part of me? Is he separate? What is this? And through various, because that's in my state of mind, the guide responds, the energy, the ally responds, because you begin to realize this is not about anybody else. Actually, this relationship is between you and yourself, not for anyone else. It's completely to help you in your life. So the guide will begin to work on your mind, and the two points of consciousness begin to come closer together, as what Jung would call personality two. And personality two is the higher aspect, the worked on aspect of your own mind, if you like, through the process of alchemy, through the process of the journey and your own work, through practicing. Personality two emerges. If you don't put in the practicing, the practice will remain flat. If you do put in the practicing, you're building a relationship of love, because that's what it turns into. And the two minds come together. And as your personality dissolves into the relationship, the personality of the guide also dissolves into the relationship, because it's no longer identity personality to identity personality. Now the relationship is brought to a deeper level, where personalities are not important. Personalities don't matter. It's much more heart to heart. And at that stage, that's more the maturing. That's where the tree starts to produce the fruit. And you suddenly see it was never about the tree, it was always about the fruit. And then when you eat the fruit, if you like, what does that mean? That means you realize it was never about anybody else. It was always about you learning to love yourself. And all of this had to happen so that finally you could actually start to love yourself, which is a totally different ballgame than reading Jung. It's what Jung was actually about. Do you see? It's like, wow, that was some journey that I was brought on to get me to that place. See, so that's this work is a work in itself. This methodology is a work in itself. It's very direct. It's something you can do all the time. You can do it when you're walking down the road. You can be mindful of that space within you. You can be aware of the aliveness, so that you're walking down the road and you're just that 1/4 inch taller as you walk down the road, because you're connecting inwardly with that aliveness. Do you see? And all the time, the purpose being you're building a relatedness with the unborn self within you. Does that make sense the way I'm describing it?
It's just beautiful. Does anyone have any questions? I mean, go ahead and.
Actually, I have a question.
Okay.
I agree. This was just a incredible description. I love the whole idea of practicing and so that you can do the practice. I'm rather curious though. So like I know the end goal of Jungian therapy is that you're doing active imagination on your own, and I'm just curious, like how much do you incorporate what you just went through in your Jungian practice?
Is that for me?
Yeah, that's for you.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, what I would say is, see, there's always two identities within every bit of therapeutic work we do. There's my personality one, which is outwardly involved, if you like, externally involved, and there's my inner personality two, which may be as well yet unborn within me. But it's still present within me from the moment of my birth. That potential is within me as part of my karma, if you want to call it that, to develop it. So even from the very first day of my therapy, this presence is within me, and my path is bringing me more and more towards that. So in terms of doing active imagination on your own, well, what is active imagination and what do you want from it? Where I met active imagination first was in taking some of my dreams a step further, where I needed to go in and find out what that dream was about. I wanted to work with it. So the therapist I was going to at the time suggested, because I was working in a Jungian process with a Jungian therapist, psychotherapist, she suggested, well, do you want to try this? So I said, yeah, I'll give that a go. So we took this dream and I recreated it in my mind, closed my eyes, and she guided me into it, saying, okay, I want you to bring all the characters together and just put them in front of you. And you have you're back in this place where the dream happened. And you as the dream ego can interact with any of these characters, very like gestalting the dream. And I want you to work with these images and just see what happens. And you can talk it out as I went along, speak it out, because the speaking of it out as it happens makes it more real. It makes the experience more powerful. So personally, my own personal experience was the first time I tried this, it fucking blew me socks off. It left me as a heap in the therapy room, because I went in to the dream. I took these symbols that were in the dream, and suddenly this particular symbol that I was working with cracked open, and what I saw inside was this little baby, which I knew to be myself. And as soon as I saw this image of the baby, I realized that the image that I had encased the baby in was this ugly casing. The way I related with myself was through this ugly casing. And then I realized, just like that, at the same time, I realized, well, it wasn't me that did that. It was my interpretation of how the family related with each other that had gone to create this negative self-image. So active imagination, my first experience of it was in therapy with this dream, and this symbol suddenly broke open, and the numinosity that came out absolutely floored me. And it has stayed with me. I came home and I started drawing, and I did all sorts of flipping stuff, which was way out of character for me at that stage. Out with the crayons and start drawing these big mandalas, flipping incredible things, poured out of me. Do you see? And then I said, well, what was that about? What happened there? Flip's sake, that was some experience. Do you see? So that was a very simple, unexpected thing, just working with a dream. You could have more elaborate active imaginations. or you could just literally take one aspect of an event out of your daily life, and you could go inside and go to that energy inside yourself and say, okay, listen, can you show me something about this? I want to work with this. I want to know more about this. Can you explain this, or show me a way through this, or how to deal with this, or just help? I'm dying here. Help me, somebody. To see, very shamanic. You're going with no power and you're asking for help. See, please, will some compassionate being come and help me? I'm suffering. See, that's active imagination. So then, if you have this relatedness, what happens is your own stream, the help comes directly through your own stream of consciousness. So you know, somebody says to me, well, the control that speak through you predominantly, there was a few of them, but the control that seemed to be the one at the front who did all the development work, who is he? And I say, well, he was a priest and his name was Patrick, and so on and so on. And you know, I can give you history, certain amount of history about that, which has been proven to me sufficiently that I accept it. Now I would say, well, he's just an aspect of me. He's one of these alive. He's one of these living symbols from within my stream of consciousness. And if I go through him, what do I find? Well, I find another and another and another. There's as many people in me as there is outside of me. Do you see? And that's the truth. And depending on my own state of mind, depending on what I stand for, my own moralistic view, my own state of consciousness, all of the above threshold of consciousness, I will receive whatever help, assistance that I can interact with. So in the beginning, the relationship might be quite black and white. That's why we do more practicing. So we enrich the field. And then through practicing more and more, through entering into the space more and more, it's much more ritualistic, much more simple. We know the ground. We just go directly to the spot where we're met. And then what we're met with might be a different energy. I remember one day in the trance space, it was common, I'd go right down and Patrick would be speaking through, and questions would be asked, and you know, there'd be dialogue going on, and it could go on for an hour and a half, sometimes, the meeting. And I remember one day a question was asked, and inside, this only happened once or twice in my life, inside where the control was completely in charge, in the middle of the dialogue, I was gone out of it, but I was aware inside of what was going on. The control, instead of answering the question, says, just paused. And within me, that control broke down into two totally distinctly two different personalities. And I was watching this going on, and I could feel them, hear them talking to each other about the question. And then the second person came through more into me, because totally different feel, embodied by a different personality type, even a different culture, and answered the question to the floor and then retreated, and the familiar control came back. And I'm watching this from the inside saying, what the hell is going on here? What's this about them? What's just happened? What does this mean for me? Okay, there's something here I don't understand. I got to find out about it. To see about how these streams of consciousness all are woven together within me, sub-personalities of sub-personality, guides of guides. How big is the tree? And what's at the base? If you go right to the very back, what are you going to find there? So after years of doing this work, you know, the mediumistic work, and then suddenly getting involved in drug work, you know, 10 years of ayahuasca and LSD and all that sort of stuff, to find out, well, what's at the back, what's going on at the very back of all of this. And it's just pure unborn aliveness. It's pure love. But not love as we know it on the outside. Love as potential that's going to manifest itself through you in how you grow and how you express yourself. Do you see the relationship is what you do with it, basically. It's about the next living moment that you enter into. That's all of that work. What does it mean? Well, it means the next living moment. How are you going to meet that? Is it going to be personality number one or personality number two? Who are you loyal to? What are you loyal to within this world? Are you loyal to this world? Are you loyal to the self inside? Who's living who? You see, all these questions start to get answered, and priorities start to become clearer. And then it's no longer you going into active imagination. You are the active imagination, literally. It's in you all of the time. It's open in you all of the time. It's never shut off. Do I have to go into trance now to channel Patrick? No, I don't. It's right there. It is me. But that's after 30 years of doing the practicing, you know, once a week, twice a week, sitting for an hour and a half. For 12 years, I sat twice a week for an hour and a half with friends who were willing to sit with me and allow me to go into that space and build that relationship. We never missed one evening for 12 years.
Sorry, that was to build the spiritual, the channeling.
That was building the channeling ability. It wasn't even wanting to do it. It's just the way life happened. When I look back at it now, I scratch my head and say, how did that happen? How come I was facilitated to do all that therapy work, never be short of money for the therapist, facilitated in sitting all that time, every fucking week, week in, week out, with people who gave their time to sit. Do you see, what's it all for? It's building all the time. It's building awareness, building a relationship. Do you see, so when somebody goes in and says, oh, I can't do this. Yeah, well, try again. Oh, nothing happened. Well, yeah, that's grand. Nothing happened this time, but try again. You see, start practicing so that when you do the competition, you're in with more of a chance. Well, you know, okay, did you practice during the week? You know, did you create many conscious moments within yourself? Did you enter into the presence within yourself anytime this week? I went for a walk down the park. Great. Brilliant. That's fantastic. Do you see? Building, everything is building it. But we need to notice that we're building it. As soon as we bring intention to that space of building, the practicing becomes more effective because we are consciously entering into it now. It's not just like something I'm doing unconsciously. Or I went to my yoga class. You know, great. You see, by entering into the practice consciously, it brings a whole different outcome. It brings a whole different level. It transforms the practicing. It makes it more like a practice in itself. And just as you're getting to know those personalities inside of you, who may or may not become evident to you, they're still there, holding the space for you. Just as you're getting to know them, they're also getting to know you. And what they're getting to know in you is how to stabilize you, how to deaden your mind sufficiently so that this content, their knowing, can become your knowing. Now, one thing I'll say with this, the practicing needs to be done in the body. The practice is more of a mental practice. It's where physical mediumship becomes more mental mediumship, more clairvoyance. But what you're doing is like spiritual healing, you're building energy. So that when you enter into that state of mental clairvoyance, you enter in there with that presence. See, there's levels and layers to your psyche. Now, if you go down to the level which is not fully formed, if you meditate yourself down to a place where you start to dissolve, what's there? Find out what's there. What's the nature of other personalities in that state where you start to dissolve? Because as you're becoming less real, they're starting to become more real. And then as you drop down in consciousness through their levels and layers, where do they bring you to? They bring you to a place where they begin to dissolve. Well, what do they dissolve in? Well, they dissolve into a group soul, a grouping of spirit, where we're all the same. We're all on the same team. We're all playing together, where we all have similar types of mind. We're all carrying the same intention. Why has it become possible for you to drop down to that level where even the personality of the guide begins to dissolve? Because there's very close parallel processes running together. The main building blocks of your personality are similar. It allows you to enter into that without conflict, without any dissonance. You see, and at that level, then you're starting to connect with deeper wisdom, not just the wisdom of one lifetime, but the wisdom that's contained within the collective. The energy, you've gone through your personal chakric system and you're collecting more into the Kundalini energy, which is more the pure consciousness of the soul, if you like, or the personality of wisdom itself. Which you may experience as pure light, or you may experience as bliss, or you may experience as just this absolute feckin' bursting open of this torrent of loving energy. Do you see? And okay, you have the experience, you have the transcendent experience, you have the practice, you have a brilliant active imagination happen, and then you come back. And it's like, well, what was all that about? Well, what that was all about was putting that energy into you so that it lives through you and it continues to affect you the next day and the next day and the next day. And it's still there next week and the week after. Because the more you enter into that space, the more becomes available to you. Do you see? And you're building all the time. Anyway, there you go. Probably said enough there, Craig. I could go on for hours on that, so.
David, did you have a question or? No, okay. All right. Well, you know, the thing that, oh,
Yeah.
go ahead, Dave. I got to unmute you just a second.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Stuart, thank you. That was very, very interesting. I do have a question about the kind of the summation that you came up with at the end, where you said that it kind of surprised me, where you said it ultimately is coming back to loving yourself. And in my experience, in my way of thinking, you've pretty much dissolved by that time. I mean, you're more
That's right.
connected to the collective rather than any kind of ego identity, certainly. So you're not, the love you're having is kind of a universal thing, I would imagine, not just you know, just not coming back to yourself, like in a kind of a nepotistic way or a narcissistic way.
Spot on. Absolutely spot on. As you love yourself, what actually is happening, you're being transformed into love yourself.
That's what Jeffrey Raff says. You actually enter into love itself.
Yeah.
And that you are love. Right.
You become loving, the loving presence within yourself. Now you still got personality one. Do you know what I mean? You still got to go out and cut the grass and do all the things and talk to the neighbors and do all those things. But you're doing it with this, you know, joyous heart within you. And in the early stages, I would be suggesting to people, well, don't bring it out too soon. You know, get to know it for yourself and really feel it for yourself. Feel the ground before you begin to sort of share the ground. See, and then love will speak when it's called on. Not you speaking for it.
You know,
it's really, really important.
The part that has been most revelatory to me is your description of the beginning of you know, of just dropping down and feeling in your heart the aliveness within yourself. I mean, in other words, this is how you, just a second. Oop, there we go. There's another person just added that you, this is how you start it, is you feel the aliveness within yourself. I mean, it's just such a beautiful, I mean, I'm wondering, you know, if at some point, I mean, you're talking about these things you did in groups. I mean, if everyone could come to one of these sessions, you know, prepared, that we could just conduct a group active imagination session. Is that possible or doable? Or what do
Yeah,
you
of
think?
course. Absolutely positive. Absolutely possible. Yeah. And everybody could work on their own individual process themselves.
Mhm. But I mean, you could direct it through some of your comments, just like you were at the beginning. You know, I found myself dropping in to that place
Absolutely.
as you, so it was sort of a guided meditation that you did, you know,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
yeah. Well, why don't, if you're okay with that, why don't we maybe do that next week, you know, and everybody come prepared to, you know, be a, you know, to really participate, you know. I mean, in this, I've been participating pretty much myself. Just, I mean, you said that, watch out, I get carried away. I don't care how carried away you get, because like I think is in what you were describing is, and this is what Jeffrey Raff did too. I mean, it wasn't him speaking. It was Paul, or who's your priest that you're
Oh,
speaking?
Patrick. That's, yeah,
Patrick.
yeah.
Yeah, it's Patrick is kind of speaking through you a little bit now, you know, when as you're talking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I get more serious as I become more serious minded, as I enter into the zone. That's what happens. You know, it's more of a flow. But guys and girls, if you think about this yourselves, okay, the symbol that you're going to be relating with in your own mind, say it happens to be a man or a woman or some other being, it makes no difference. That symbol, that living presence within you emerges out of nowhere. It comes out of the depths of your own being. It doesn't come from the outside, it comes from the inside. So all I'm suggesting as way of practicing is try to meet that living presence further across the bridge. Don't be expecting to meet this person fully dressed, speaking your language on your side of the bridge. Go some distance across the bridge and allow them to meet you as a not yet fully prepared constellated image. Meet it at the level of just pure aliveness.
Well, that's why I didn't really like, you know, going into active imagination looking for the ally. And I think you've explained just there how I didn't find that helpful. You know, just where's the ally? I mean, instead, you are looking for the unformed presence of aliveness within yourself and
Yeah,
allowing them to form through
right.
the practicing, you know.
So then, Craig, when you actually come to doing the practice, that formative field of aliveness is the same formative field that's going to produce all of the symbols, all of the living presences that you might relate with in all of your journeys are going to come out of that same formative cloud of aliveness. Do you see, it's like the first human quality. If you take the pleroma, making the pleroma conscious, what is the first human quality that we might identify as being, you know, relevant to me that I can actually relate with? It is this aliveness. But what precedes aliveness? Well, I've no idea. But aliveness I can relate to in my own body. I can feel it. So if I go down in my meditation through my you know, lucid dreaming states, if I can drop down and just focus on where do I feel this aliveness within myself? Okay, there it is. There, it's just at the top of my bottom of my diaphragm. Oh no, it's moved. Now it's coming up through my lungs. Where is it now? My hands are on fire. Do you see all these? My skin is tingling. Yes, that's right. This aliveness is now relating with you. You've got its attention. You've shown interest in it, and now it's showing interest in you.
I've found that I don't know, just as you're describing that. I mean, this has been lately through my rudimentary active imagination, that I feel every part of my body has its own voice or consciousness. I mean, I can feel consciousness in my fingers and my hands, and and so those are different voices that
Yes.
are in my body, and my thoughts are kind of separated from that. So when you say go into the body, what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is when you sit, and you could be just sitting for 5 minutes. That's all. It doesn't need a long, long time. You don't need to light a candle or any of those things. Or if you want to, you can do all of that stuff. But when you just sit and just let go of your stress and just fall into your body, allow your center of gravity to drop, close your eyes and just move your awareness inside as you move away from this world. Just bring your attention down into your body and allow yourself to enter into that sort of totally relaxed space. And when you feel that you've dropped down sufficiently to be sort of independently inside, away from your distracted mind, then you can sort of say, okay, now what am I feeling here? Where's this? Is there anything there within me grabbing my attention? To see what's arising up within me. Mm-hmm. And it could take a couple of seconds to build. It could take a few minutes to build. It might take a couple of practices to build, but it will build.
And that's what I think some of the stumbling clumsiness that I've had is missing that point. Is and this is what so resonates, is that you start out by just feeling that part of you that's aliveness, this feeling, this aliveness within you. And what is this aliveness within me?
Yeah.
And it's now this is my first dialogue.
Yes, that's
with
right.
The aliveness within me.
Exactly.
Yes.
You're meeting for the first time. You see, and what's actually happening is that aliveness is slowly getting your permission, earning your trust, so that it can begin to stimulate your psyche at a very base level. It's like at the very foundational level of your psyche, where your awareness probably very rarely goes to. And it's drawing your attention inward to that space. So it's naturally making you more intuitive.
Don't you think this, I mean, you talk about the conceptual things that are so, that have been plaguing me all my life. But, the word wisdom or the lumen natura, the light of nature, that is the aliveness within you that you feel.
Yes.
That is the wisdom.
After you've entered into a direct experience with it, and then you bring it out, and it then meets life, and it interacts with life as your own a direct experience in life, I would say, yes, that becomes the wisdom within you. But until you live it, it's not your wisdom, it's the wisdom that has been given to you. But once you begin to live it for yourself, then it becomes your wisdom. It's like the two minds begin to merge. There's less of a gap between them, less of a distinction between them. Once it becomes your direct experience in your own lived life.
Yeah, and the practicing is kind of a circular process. Each time you do it, each time you begin the work, that the relatedness is increased on both sides of the bridge. I mean, anyway, it's just it starts with just feeling the aliveness within you.
The practicing is always going to be you having your own direct experience. It's not conceptual, it's not reading, That's something you can do again as well. That's useful in its own right. But when you sit, if you don't sit and if you don't just enter into these spaces, you're missing a whole component. Probably the most important component of the work is missing.
Mhm.
See, the result you get is dependent on the time you put in. And this is where you really put in the time with the ally.
And that's I think that was the one problem I had with Jeffrey Rapp. I think you've solved for me is I'm not looking for the ally. I'm looking for that feeling, which is something I can identify with, that feeling of aliveness within myself. That's what I'm seeking when I drop down, because I think all of us can feel that. I mean, where is it, and what is it? You know.
See, we have an advantage over the people who practice spiritualism. In spiritualism, the thought is already within the person that they're going to meet a personality, the purpose of which is to really give evidence and to prove that people don't die, the continuation of life. That's the purpose within spiritualism, within the UK model, certainly. Now that remains stuck within personalities. And this is the problem with spiritualism. They've taken the transcendent out of it. Whereas if you come more from the position of Jung into this, it's much more of an internal experience. You're not looking to meet an identity as such, other than the self. You see, and the self is going to appear as many symbols, many identities, because the self is none of those things and all of those things. So you've got to extend your own window of perception, your own direct experience of this vast aliveness, so that you can interface in a vast way with this vast aliveness. If you just keep going in looking for the same person wearing the same hat, well, then all you're going to get is what that person with that hat can give you. Whereas if you're going in and you're becoming the aliveness itself, that is a whole different kettle of fish. The whole psychic fabric, the fabric of your psychic being is now fully involved within the experience with the self. You have entered into the relatedness, no longer a relationship, it's much deeper than that. And the effect of that as you come out and you're walking down the road is you become more sensitive, more synthesized to your own body. Your intuition is less split off, it's more embodied. You're much more in your feet. It's more authentic when you've had that type of direct experience of yourself than if you try to do it cognitively, intellectually, or through one specific thing.
This is what Jung, why he didn't want to found an institute, because this cannot be taught. I mean, that was essentially what he was saying. This cannot be taught, and it can only be experienced. And so, that was why he said, he really, everything that he said that he wrote later was trying to flesh out in his sort of amazingly rich fruitcake type way what he'd experienced in his visions through connecting with the aliveness. And that, he says, it was just an exposition of that experience of the aliveness. But anyway, does like Tim, do you have a question, or anybody's Zbigniew, or?
I'm just trying to absorb the whole idea. I think it's been helpful for me to read the Ally. Mm-hmm. Now I'm just trying to incorporate what Stuart is talking about. It's fascinating.
Yeah, what I'm sharing is just purely my own experience that I've investigated and tried to find parallels in with Jungian theory. So it's my own understanding, my own personal realizations of this field over quite a few years, but it may be different than yours. So you need to look into it yourself and say, okay, well, this is what he said. I'll hold it out there. Now I'll find my own path.
Yeah, I'd asked Jeffrey Raff to come here. I don't think we need Jeffrey Raff. I think we've got Jeffrey. I mean, you, I think, are a lot more practical than Jeffrey Raff is. And one thing I did notice as far as your description of your experience was very similar to Jung's. He when he first had this drop down and this sort of what he called a psychic breakup and all these things overcoming him, he really didn't know what to do. And all he could do, was to try to connect with other people around him, and also to find historical antecedents, some things that it had happened in the past that were similar to what he had experienced. He came from a family of mediums. I mean, Emily Pricework, his mother, and then Elaine Pricework, who was a medium, a spiritualist medium, that he wrote his doctoral thesis on, so-called occultism. And, then he, so he's trying to find, he first was looking at Gnosticism, then he, and doing the Red Book, he was trying to make real in the outer world. I mean, his idea that is, I have to do something in the outer world that expresses what I'm experiencing in my, this inner visionary life. He had to make it real in the outer world, make it concrete. And so then, and then he met Richard Wilhelm, who was, brought The Secret of the Golden Flower, which introduced him. He had been introduced to alchemy through Henry Silberer, and he had his own alchemical books and his dream about being trapped in the 17th century with all these chemical books. But after he met Richard Wilhelm and he discovered alchemy, then he now had his historical antecedent that he could line up with these dizzying crack up visions that he'd experienced, and now he can fit it into that. And, the alchemical model, and just maybe you can speak to this too, in the time we've got left, is just you're thinking about the alchemical model is the fact that the first thing is that this unformed aliveness within us that you speak of is a prisoner that we've neglected and ignored all our lives. And in some of the alchemists, it cries out that to them in vision that I am trapped in the mire. Don't look at me, my blackness. This blackness, the being trapped in the mire makes me this color. If thou wilt pay attention to me, I will give into your hands the morning star. So at that point, there is this this idea of this trapped, and so you, as the ego personality, are going to redeem this.
You're getting in touch. Yeah, you're as Jung said, every single one of us has to bring the dead alive in us. We've got to get in touch with the dead within ourselves. Not meaning, Auntie Sally or Uncle John or whoever. That's, fine. But the dead wisdom, the wisdom of the dead. So by going in this way, what you're doing is you're connecting with the dead within yourself. Now, the dead is going to speak through you as the unknown in the beginning. You're not going to recognize the dead in the very beginning. And that's why we need to get in touch with the dead, because we don't recognize the dead. So we've got to allow it to build. If there's no building, well then you're not going to jump, you don't jump into running. You begin running and then you speed up. And it's exactly the same in developing this relationship with the dead within you. The wisdom comes slowly, it deepens slowly. Now, whether you're using it for active imagination or whether you're just using it just so that you can be more in your own life, doesn't really matter, maybe both. But that's in my experience, that's the best process, the best way in. If somebody said to me, well, I got 5 years to do this job, how will I best use my effort? I would say, well, spend some of it sitting, for sure.
Are you talking about the ancestral world when you talk about the dead? Or the Young wrote the 7 sermons to the dead, yeah, which was just automatic writing, to a certain extent. And
what I'm referring to, Craig, yeah, what I'm referring to, Craig, is all of that as it comes to you, and depending on your touch, your relatedness with it, that will provide a filter for what naturally is to be yours. So you will get what you're capable of getting. And also you may get certain things that you don't need, don't want, and you will let go of those things. Because as you become alive, as the dead in you enliven you, give life back to you, what happens is you, all of you, shadow as well, your complete dynamics will become alive. So you'll meet yourself standing, basically. It enlivens the process within you. So it kicks off something. It's the beginning. It affects your life in many ways, not just in. So you may suddenly find that you meet your mother or your father. Great, super. Well, that's the experience you had today. There's obviously something there for you. And then the next day you go in, you don't meet that, you meet something else more symbolic or great. Well, that's what you got today. Do you see? But yeah, all the time it's working on you, working on it, working on you.
And it's this, and what I think to me is what is happening is the aridity and the dryness of the ego is meeting the water of life, the water of aliveness that is coming in and just, I mean, it's such it is what the soul longs for, don't you think? Or what is your, how did you feel before you encountered this world and after, as far as your own, sense of aliveness or the state of your soul?
I think okay. So what I found, I think, is going to be quite similar to what other people might find, in that you're going to meet the experience. This is an experience that happens in the heart. You're opening your heart and you're entering into a heart space within yourself. Now, as that happens, your head is also going to go into that space and is going to be observing, witnessing, making comment about that space. And the same dynamic that has you being who you are in the world, you will return with the direct experience you've had into that same dynamic, and it will slowly begin to work on you as that dynamic and make you more heart-centered. So slowly the person in their life will become less head-orientated and will slowly become more body-orientated. Not in an unconscious body way, but in a more meeting the sacred within yourself, and also meeting the sacred within all of life itself. So the effects are deeply from the inside and are profound as they are brought into the outside. Does that make sense the way I'm saying that, guys?
Well, I mean, most of us are decapitated heads, I mean, we're not real bodies. I mean, this is something that I've longed for all my life, and all my dreams are telling me this is, you know, the door opens, out comes a dog that was trapped in the basement for 20 years, and it's just skinny, emaciated dog. That's my body. That's the aliveness within myself, coming up out of the unconscious in this attitude of has not gotten any food for all this time, you know. So I mean, this is the idea of this uniting with the body. Really, I mean, is been my focus since I started working with you, and I
See,
have.
you're meeting the body not as not from your current conscious position as a head. When you go into the space, you're meeting your body much more internally. So there's less shaping. You're not as fully formed yourself on the inside. So it's easier to connect on the inside with these sensations than it is through your ordinary states of consciousness. Remember, as soon as you sit, you're entering into an altered state of consciousness. So as you alter your consciousness, all of the parameters of your perceptions are changed. So the impossible becomes very possible. So you're meeting your body in a totally different form, if you like. You're meeting your body more as the source of aliveness at a deeper level within its consciousness. Guys, you have to try it. That's the only way you're going to know if it's right.
Did you have a question, Sandy? Let me.
Well, question, comment. I just started active imagination, and my experience so far has been not really to see anybody, but it's just a warm, accepting, loving presence. Am I hearing you right? Just to stay with that and let things come?
Yes, Sandy, exactly. And what I would say is see the difference between practicing and practice. Like if I go to the gym to work out, I'm working on machines. But when I go to attend the competition, there's none of those machines present. I jump on a motorbike or a push bike or a horse, or you know, it's a different ballpark. So there are two distinctly different areas within us in preparing for this. We can do practicing in a different way than we do our practice.
So would that be
practice might be active imagination?
That would be practicing when I'm just present with that presence?
So practicing would be to take that warm presence that you've experienced and to bring it into your practicing space and to make it the object of your intention. So you're not just sitting with the warm feeling, you're going down into it more and more and more. Not to make it anything in particular, but just to be with it. So it's like the practicing is like I go down to the same bus stop every day and I just stand there. And my intention is never to get on a bus.
Beautiful.
I just go down, I just stand at that bus stop. I make myself available to spirit. Every day I enter into a contract the same time each week, whatever it is, I'll be there. Do what you need. I go down, I stand at the bus stop and I open the door.
Well, you know, there is a alchemical work called the introitus apertus, the open door. You know, this is the open door for me. I mean, I really think this is for the, I don't know about the rest of you, but I mean, I'm thinking that this is something that resonates with me, because just in the little bit we did, when, you know, find the aliveness in yourself, in the start in the region of the heart. I felt something right off the bat. You know, I mean, I felt that this was the open door, you know, and the fact that it is the straining to find form, straining to find form in active imagination so that you can find something to talk with. this gives me something to connect with, where I don't have to force it. You know, I just feel the aliveness within myself. Okay, now, if we're going to do this week, I thought maybe next week we could just do a session. It doesn't have to last 90 minutes, but you know, however long you think it should last, and we come ready to do this. What is, and after you felt the aliveness, you're just going to do that for about how long at a time, and what can you kind of give us a recipe for what to do this week as we prepare for this, or just
okay.
to get into this? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. So what I'd suggest is, when you have time, maybe this evening, maybe tomorrow sometimes, you know, don't leave it too long, is take 5 minutes, maybe before you go to sleep tonight, just to sit and just follow your breath in, and follow as you breathe out, follow the exhale out in your body. Feel your body emptying. Feel your body becoming still as you exhale out. And then in the space before you begin to inhale, at the bottom, at the very bottom, if you like, there's a very still place before you begin to inhale, before you take in the next breath. So you've been breathing in and out, taking a few breaths. So just as you breathe out, just allow your body to stop. It's like as if, well, that's my last breath. I'm dying. Oh, I'm dead. No in-breath. I'm dead. Total stillness. And just feel at that place in yourself. Just feel for any sense of, okay, how do I need to move my consciousness now in order to join with this aliveness? And it's like a subtle feeling of aliveness, maybe, that you may feel. And then you breathe in again. And then as you go, breathe out again, go drop back down into your own place of death. And
that is so beautiful. I mean, that's something Peter Kingsley talked about, is that all of culture in the Western world came from people lying in dark places and dying. You know, in other words, their ego, I mean, they felt death. You know, I mean, they just said, I'm dead. Now what? You know, I mean, that they were trying to go into that state of death and then go back into aliveness.
now, what you may feel, you know, usually people, if they do it a few times, not even many times, even just a few times, it only takes five minutes max. You will begin to feel some type of, it's like somewhere up and down that ladder, as you climb down to your dead place, you will meet a place where you can feel sort of a bit of animation, a little bit of movement of some sort. It's like my mind is still, I'm relaxed, and yet there's something stirring on the inside. I can sort of feel it twisting and spiraling up through me. It's like you may even find your body begin to very subtly move with that feeling as it comes up and down. It could be in your spine, or it could be in your breath, could be wherever, makes no difference. And then the practicing is just to say, okay, you know, I just, yeah, I'm happy with this. This is okay. I can accept this. So you're opening yourself to it. And then when you're finished, what will happen, if it's going to come through you, more into you as an overshadowing into a mediumistic place, it will take your breath. So in each time the control comes in to speak, at some point in time, he takes my breath. My whole breath rhythm changes. And there's a point in that transformation of identities where distinctly I feel myself starting to be breathed. It's no longer me breathing myself. Now I am being breathed. And it is so obvious to me. It's nearly like a clunk, as suddenly, it's like suddenly changing into another gear in the car. There's a clunk, and a jolt nearly happens. And at that point, my awareness, my consciousness then moves away rapidly. It's no longer me jumping, it's it pulling.
Well, yeah, what I think this has been, I'm glad if you know, it's recorded because I want to re-listen to this.
Yeah.
But this is a good beginning exercises that I can do, at least. I mean, I don't know if everybody else, I feel like I can do. And then maybe next time, and you can have it as long as you want, Stuart. We'll just do a directed, it could be 30 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, 90 minutes, however long. And then we'll just come prepared to do that. And then maybe as we go through that, I mean, because we're going to start out with, I'm seeing to myself that I'm just going to try to feel the aliveness within me, also to feel the death within me. You know, this breath is my last breath, you know, and so this is a good way of being aware of that my breathing, and a good exercise or practice. And then how can we differentiate this, as you say, you know, that you can, as it develops and as we develop and the aliveness within us becomes more conscious, how can we like take our dreams to it, and you know, things like that. But that could come later.
Just very simply, just at the very end, what happens is once you've done this once or twice and you felt this experience within yourself, then all you do is you just replicate it.
Mm-hmm.
You could be standing at the bus stop, just waiting for the bus, and you just decide, okay, I'm going to close my eyes for 10, 15 seconds, and I'm going to drop into that place. You get to know how to go to it.
Mm-hmm.
And you just go there. And then you can go there in waking consciousness. You don't even have to close your eyes. It's just like reaching inward, mindfully reaching inward to that place. And it's like inviting that presence in to support you. I mean, we all do it without knowing we do it.
Well, just the little bit we've done here, and I've been doing some of that dropping down, I know this is something I can do. You know, I mean, I've been just groping around, stumbling around, you know, and now I feel this is doable. What do the rest of you guys think?
I feel the same.
Yeah,
Feels great.
yeah, this is something that I can participate in right off the bat, being one who has to go up hand over hand, you know, to the upper worlds. You know, I've never had the experience of this happening spontaneously, you know, yet in my life. So anyway, now does anyone we got just a couple minutes? Is it Miles or Lewis or Zabignu or Gary?
I'd just like to say thank you, and thank you, Craig, for revealing, you know, this concept of the aliveness, because I've, you know, until now and until the concept of the ally, I have felt very alone in what I'm working on, and I'm very much a contemplative person. I have meditated, I have had mystical experiences on occasion. And so I realized that I've been an affront to the creation and the giver of life. And my belief is that, especially this time of Easter, Jesus Christ was an affront to business as usual. And I feel compelled to, go forward to share insights. But, if you feel alone, I've been really kind of stagnated. But to think of an ally and aliveness means I'm not so alone, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Hear me unmute you, Stuart. All right, I think you're muted.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people will put their own names on the aliveness, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So to be able to call that aliveness in yourself Jesus is a wonderful thing, because straight away everything that Jesus represents to you is being projected inwardly into that aliveness, inviting it to constellate with all of those similar qualities. So when we meet the sacred as sacred, that's where the magic really happens. You see?
How about Gary or Tim or Lewis? Or I see Zbigniew, you got your microphone off, but do you guys have any closing comments?
I'm looking forward to it. It'll be great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it as a learning experience. Gary?
I was just going to say, I was going to, if you were only ever going to try one form of meditation, what you've described, Stuart, I think is like the best possible thing you could do. I'm just blown away by this description. And really, thank you very much.
Well, I can't wait for it. I'm gonna cheat and do it this week. So anyway, Lewis, did you have any closing comments? Or good to see you, or at least your ceiling.
Well, I'm in self-quarantine, and in the event I have to stand up or make something,
Yes.
nobody wants to see me.
Okay,
Visually.
that's fine. Well, thanks for coming, Lewis. And Stuart, blessings to you. This has been so wonderful. And could reconvene at 10 a.m. Or probably 4 p.m. Ireland time, and 9 a.m. Tim and Miles time.
Thank you, Stuart.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll see you all next week. I'm so delighted in this. Thank you, Stuart. I'm from the bottom of my heart.
It's great to share. So,
well, I'm so grateful. Okay. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.